We stand here today because it appears that our beloved East End of London has died before our very eyes. But how could this happen? Have we been distracted by fake news and out-of-reach visions of utopia flashing up on our smartphones? As recently as December 2020, the Bishopsgate goods yard in Shoreditch was given the green light by London Mayor Said Osmani and the Greater London Authority. Now landowners and developers want to socially cleanse local people, the ethnic minorities and long-standing embedded communities, because suddenly the land they stand on and they call home is worth more than their own lives. In the last few months, we've knocked on countless doors on houses, flats and estates to collect signatures. Hardly anyone there had been told about the Truman Brewery plans. The decision makers say that the local people are moving out, but this is untrue. We met young British Bangladeshis bringing up their young families on estates with no visible improvements in decades. Structural racism in housing is not new in the borough of Tower Hamlets. In the 1970s and 1980s, Bangladeshis were not given homes simply because of the colour of their skin, and families lived in squalor, a housing and planning system that dragged another generation into a cycle of poverty.
This was the first place I learned what a community was and what being a British Bengali meant. It is a safe haven of acceptance for the working class and the Bengali community to be who they are, express themselves as they see fit. It is a safe place for independent businesses to grow, run and establish themselves, and for the elderly to comfortably grow old amongst friends and family without worrying about their future. However, with this new development, it is a death to this safety and everything Brick Lane has ever stood for. To them, it's another way to make the rich even richer. For communism to take place, corporate greed and capitalism to increase. They do not care for sentiments, history, culture, or what our Bengali ancestors and forefathers had fought hard to avoid, to which included my great-grandfather, who had migrated here in the 1950s. To them, it's just another unnecessary zero to their paycheck and making billionaires even more millions that they couldn't possibly need or spend during their lifetime. While we see the increase of unemployment and homelessness and death of the community and its working class people, and the Tower Hamlets housing list increased to the point that the working class and the indigenous people, due to the abdominant rent prices and ever-growing waiting lists, have no choice but to be forced to be displaced and accept a home that is as far away from London and their original home as possible, for their whole lives to be uprooted due to corporate greed. The pattern of colonization of rich people buying, settling and establishing control over the indigenous people of an area and then raising rent prices to the point of the indigenous people and working class people can no longer afford to live in the place they have lived and call their homes forever is not new, but it needs to end and be criminalised and recognised for the hostile takeover it is.
For hundreds of years, Brick Lane, Spitalfields and Banglatown have been the entry point for new communities to arrive and thrive. London, more than any other European city, is defined by its immigration. Brick Lane has always been the city gateway for these people. It's a beating heart that makes London what it is. You can't pluck it out and drive it to the suburbs. This event shows that the community here is strong and has not and will not leave quietly. Save Brick Lane.
Spitalfields and Banglatown was coined by the community to help safeguard the community spaces and local businesses. It was the first Banglatown in the Western world, but now everything local is under threat. Black, white, Asian, you name it, is being sold off, pushed out for short-term private gain. Today, the East End falls silent and dying, but not quite dead. Gentrification must be managed and can even be reversed. The East End needs a chance to survive. 7,400 objection letters have been received against the Truman Brewery shopping mall, and we all know that this number of objections would have been higher had it not been for the COVID-19 lockdown. So we want to go back to the drawing board. If the plans for a shopping mall is approved this week, then it's local democracy that has died.
We're in the midst of a struggle now. I recall the struggle in the late 70s and early 80s, which was a struggle against racism, and we just come from Al-Sabali Park, and of course Al-Sabali was murdered in the late 70s in a racist attack. The struggle we're having now is slightly different, but to me it's not. It's very similar. It's a struggle against the force of power thrown against a community, and it's as a community that we have gathered and are gathering and are struggling. This poem, which is simply called Brick Lane, was written after the death of and dedicated to Al-Tabari. It was also written for Bill Fishman, who I want to mention because Bill was a great Jewish historian of the radical East End, and he would have been utterly appalled by what has happened, particularly in the past 5 or 6 years since his death. He would be standing here where he walked many, many times. He would be grief-struck. Whoever has walked slowly down Brick Lane in the darkening air and a stiff little rain, past the curry house with the lascivious frescoes and the Huguenot silk attics of Fournier Street, and the mosque that before was a synagogue and before that a chapel. Whoever has walked down that tunnel of rich history, past the sweatshop at night and the imam with henna'd hair, and recalls the Beigel sellers on the pavements, windows candled to Friday night, would know this street is a seamless cloth, this city, these people, our people, and would not suffocate ever from formlessness or abrupted memory, would know rich history as a present before us, laid out like a cloth for the wearing, with bits of mirror, and can walk slowly down Brick Lane from end to seamless end, looped in the air and the light of it, in the human lattice of it, the blood and exhausted flesh of it, the words grown bright with a body's belief, and life to be fought for and never to be taken away. And that's what we need to do now, because our culture is trying to be destroyed and will be destroyed unless we struggle on. Thank you.